everyone, and welcome back to the Wolf Den. This is the Howling Gamers Podcast. We talk about anime, video games, movies, and anything else that piques our interest. I am CyberWolfJimmy.
And I'm ZombieWolfFreakiod, and today we are taking a tread back into Final Fantasy territory because one of the two of us can't get enough of it. So we're... Sorry?
That's that'd be me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you. And you're the one who writes the content, so, I mean, we're stuck like this.
Yeah.
So we're heading back to Final Fantasy territory. We're going to be talking about FanFest 2023 because that just happened. So we're going to pick up and talk about a few of the different things that they talked about there, primarily revolving around Final Fantasy XIV because Final Fantasy XIV and how good it is. So Jimmy, why don't we jump into our first topic here and start going over what they talked about, what they gave us basically.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I wanted to mention is that it was in Las Vegas, and I was there in April. I took a look. It wasn't at the Venetian Resort, which is where I was for Atlassian's Team 23, but it was only about a 10-minute drive at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So kind of cool that it was close to where I was. There was no way I was going to be approved by my wife to go to Vegas twice in a year.
I think she'd start to get suspicious.
Maybe. I mean, it's one of those things where, people ask me what sort of gambling I do, and I don't have time because of how involved I am in the ecosystem. And I feel like something like this, I'd be way too involved in everything that's going on. But yeah, there were
You're
a lot
too much of a
things.
paladin to go gambling. Your righteous heart.
It's not just being a paladin. I'm also like super stupid when it comes to it, where I don't understand how to like even do a slot machine. I kid you not, I have had to ask people for help on that stuff, so I don't bother anymore.
High charisma, low intelligence. That's what we got here.
Hey, I'm okay with it. So let's start with some of the things that are cool that they're doing, but they're not the biggest news. We'll save that for the end.
Yeah.
I mean, right off the bat, one of the things that I thought was cool is they're apparently going to do a two-way crossover between Final Fantasy XIV and Fall Guys.
I just find this so weird. Like, they're not games that go together in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, Final Fantasy is so off the wall sometimes, and Fall Guys is just so malleable you can literally put anything into there that it's like, I guess like it kind of, you could put it, I mean, we already have some weird things in Final Fantasy. You got cats that can talk and dogs that can cast magic and shit like that. Like it's not unreasonable to have things like this in here, and yet it still feels weird to talk about the two of them together.
It does and it doesn't. I mean, I don't know how recently you have been in Final Fantasy XIV. I mean, the last time I was in was probably about a year ago, but the Gold Saucer still had some mini games that were platformers. So
Oh, really?
so the concept of making a Fall Guys course, I don't know exactly how they're going to do it, but it almost feels as though the framework's there as just adding it into the Gold Saucer, and for a limited time you're going to be able to do a Fall Guys course as a Gold Saucer mini game, which I'm in.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It just sounds ridiculously crazy, and at the same time it's like, I mean, why not, right? Like
Yes.
fair enough, right? Like, and in honestly, in my opinion, as someone who comes from game development, to see something like Fall Guys, where I know it's not like an indie game, but it was not made by a huge studio. It's not this giant game that everybody knew was it kind of came out, and the pandemic kind of made it a big thing, kind of like Among Us, right? Where it's like,
yes, absolutely.
It found its niche at the perfect time with the right audience and people who couldn't go anywhere, and that was a great way to do things. So to see them reaching such a status point where they're basically partnering with a franchise that has 30 plus years of history in the gaming industry, like, that's saying a lot for them, and it's a big accomplishment. So it's really cool to see that Final Fantasy is like, no, like these are important things and these are up and comers that have made their impact in this industry. So, it's kind of fun that way.
And I would say the important piece on that specific note is it's going to be a two-way crossover in that there are going to be Final Fantasy character costumes in Fall Guys,
Yeah, they're
which
going to give you
it's
skins.
worth noting. Square Enix is very protective of their properties, that they don't give that stuff out to just anyone. So that is very telling that they, sort of believe in the the developer of Fall Guys to sort
Yeah.
of
And the
offer
art
up those
team
sorts of assets.
and the art team over there to really do justice to what it is that their style is in
Yeah.
Fall Guys style, right? Like I want somebody to have a gun blade. Somebody needs a gun blade. Even if it's just
Yes.
a texture on the side of one of the Fall Guys, somebody needs a gun blade.
I'm in on that one too.
uh,
So it also seems as though patch 6.5 is going to have some of the big content, big-ish um, changes that are coming.
okay.
Ironically enough, first off, the Xbox One and S and X are going to now be officially supported, which makes this like almost completely. They have gone 100% in cross-platform as far as hitting all the major systems. So digital only open beta is going to be starting soon, from what I understand, and it's just a. I don't have an Xbox. I've never owned any of the Xbox consoles, so not something that directly affects me. But
I,
hey, I'm not opposed to it.
I wonder how much of an audience they're going to have on that platform. Just, because anyone who wants to play Final Fantasy likely has a PlayStation console, or in this case, would be playing it on computer. So it's like,
Yep.
I wonder how much of the audience is missing because they only have an Xbox to play games on. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, if they're going to invest time and energy into it, they must see that there's at least something they're going to get out of it. So, I mean, it's hard to say that they're making a bad decision because they've made some pretty great decisions with 14. So, if they've
Yes.
decided to do it, they probably have a reason for it. So, I'm interested to see if that actually makes a difference, if that really
Yep.
is a factor. So, you know.
Additionally, 6.5, and this is one that I think you're going to be super interested in. They are expanding their free trial to include Stormblood. So, for any of you out there who have heard the spiel and the campaign of, you can join now and play up to level 60 and Heaven's Ward content. Um, yeah, they're going to be expanding that to also include level 70 and Stormblood, which um, I had started looking at the time frame, and I mean that was 7 years ago. As of today, it'll be 8 years by the time I think 6.5 is going to be out. That it's just a. I give them credit for saying, you know what? Yeah, anyone who still hasn't played this content, just go and play it.
Well, and I mean it also speaks to like how they're developing with the game, right? It's like, okay, this is old enough content now that we're not going to make a whole lot of money by by gating it off of pay, right? Like it's not the barrier right now. If people want to play and want to pay, they're going to pay for the newer content. So let's keep the newer content still paid so people don't. But it's like, if you paid for Stormblood, it's like you don't feel cheated by the fact that 7 years later they made it free, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. When did I buy Stormblood? Because I still haven't even played through the content of Stormblood myself, and I don't feel bad about having paid for Stormblood, even though I haven't paid for it yet. So
Yeah, it's just like it's one of those things where it's like when an older game becomes free, you're like, hey, more people can play this thing that I enjoyed. I don't feel
yeah,
bad that they made it free and I had to pay for it. I paid for it because I wanted to play it when they made it, right? And now they're making it so more people can play this.
and I believe that should also open up the Red Mage, the Samurai, and everyone's favorite, the Blue Mage, to anyone who has a free trial, which,
So that was the part I was
that.
going to ask: is does it open races and classes that are in Stormblood as well?
So I believe it does because they did that with Heaven's Ward, right?
Okay.
The the
Yeah.
Machinist, the Dark Knight, and the Astrologian were available as a part of the free trial. They were just gated behind the fact that you needed to get to
Yeah.
the location that they were in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You still need to get to them, but it's like you can now access them without. Uh, yeah. Basically. Yeah. Cool. So, I mean, that's very exciting because I am still in the free trial. I have not paid for the game as of yet because I don't play it as often as some other people, but it's exciting because it means that I have more content when I play the game to get through before, and really feel like I'm more than happy to support a developer. If I put time and energy into the game, I'm more than happy to give them money for that because that means I enjoyed it. I've paid for
yes, and
games that
I
are free to
completely agree with
play
that.
because I said I've put enough time into this that you deserve compensation for what it is I've done, and you did not make it so that I had to pay in order to get anywhere. So I'm willing to support you for that.
I agree with you
So
on that 100%.
when I get enough time put into the game, I will absolutely be paying for something within 14 to say, hey, look, you guys have done a good job and you've given me hours of entertainment and you deserve to be shown that through monetary, means so that your
Yes.
numbers reflect that I enjoyed this.
All right, let's move on to the big news.
Yep, big
So,
news time.
Dawn Trail. Uh,
Dawn
we
Trail.
got a teaser of the next expansion.
We got a rockin' trailer. It had a amazing soundtrack in the background. I was rocking out to that soundtrack most of the time.
So I will say this much: I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but not as much as one other trailer that they have done over the years.
Okay.
My favorite is still Shadowbringers,
Shadowbringers.
and
Okay.
that's because Shadowbringers actually does a callback to every single trailer up to that point.
Mm.
If you haven't seen it, you go watch it first off. But at one point, the main, I'm just going to call him the Warrior of Light, is job switching through every job that he shows up as in every other trailer while he's fighting the unknown enemy at that point until becoming a Dark Knight, because that was their focus for that expansion.
Okay.
They did a callback to every single other class he has appeared as, and I appreciated that part of it. Obviously, there's always kick-ass music because Square Enix is fantastic at that. So
They love to do that. It's always good to hear. I mean, they have some fantastic composers in that
yes.
studio, and they are not shy about utilizing their talents.
But I'll say this much: I mean, watching the trailer, I am excited to see what they're going to do. Um, yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely.
it's definitely
Go
going to
ahead.
be interesting for sure. I'm
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where the story goes with that one. I mean, I am watching a playthrough that is telling me the story of 14, even though I haven't personally played it through. So I'm not fully caught up yet, but just knowing where we have been so far, I am excited to see where this is going to take us. Seems like somebody got a little bit of Monster Hunter into their Final Fantasy game, so that's going to be interesting to see what that means, like how that kind of plays itself out in the actual gameplay from what we saw in the trailer. But I also love the theming of it. The whole thing being set as like the new world, the Aztec stylings, like I feel like Final Fantasy, especially 14, they're great at telling stories, and they've been telling such rich stories with targeted reasonings and targeting themes to different groups and different themes that they want to explore. Be it subjugation or taking away people's lands or all these different things. They have their villains, they have their entities, and they try to tell these stories that really play off of these ideas. And it's wonderful to see how they use their world to tell those stories and those themes. And I mean, we're going to the New World with the Aztec people. I'm really interested to see if they hit on those themes of the conquering tyrants, kind of idea, the overriding of the culture, kind of thing. If that's something they're going to touch on in there, is that not what they're going to do? I have no idea, but I have all the faith that they're going to do something really interesting with it. And like, people have set up before their naming conventions and their languages being derived and really embodied from the regions that they came from are just like really cool to see. The playthrough I was watching, they talked about that for the I forget what the region is that you go when you're rescuing Alamigo.
The Alamigo? Is that where you're
No,
thinking of?
it's the region that you go to where it's the warring clans and you have to help them all out. But all the names are based off of the nomadic peoples of Asia,
Okay.
the Mongolians. So all of the names
Interesting.
are very heavily derived from that language, and it's like it's hard for us to pronounce them because their wording, their language wording, is like the way they do their syllables and everything. It's different, and it's just. But they do their research, and they do this very intentionally to build more depth in their world, right? And it's always thought out and it's put in with intention, and it's just like, so I'm very excited to see how they do it with the Aztecs with South America. My wife is from South America, so I'm very excited to see how they represent that culture in this game that has represented other cultures. So
I'm even more excited now.
yeah,
Now, the one thing
that's
that
just yeah.
the
I'm
one
just
thing that
gushing about that because it's very exciting.
the one thing they usually announce as well is new jobs,
Yes,
and
new
they opted
jobs.
not to completely announce it. So I'll say this much: I was not surprised when they said there's going to be two DPS jobs,
Yeah.
and the reason for that is if you look at the last few expansions. So I'm going to try and work my way backwards on this one. So in Endwalker, you had a DPS class and a healer. In Shadowbringers, you had a DPS class and a tank. And in Stormblood, you had um, two DPS classes. So it's just it seems as though they're trying to make sure that they're representing all of the roles equally. So it's about time that a couple of DPS classes came back. What they did share is one would be a melee, one would be a caster of sorts,
Yep.
and then just as a known entity, the presenter's T-shirt is usually a hint at what's going to be coming. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the internet is on fire with ideas around what they think is going to happen. I don't have a clue what's going to happen, and I will just wait and see what they end up doing.
So I'm just gonna state their theories, or the theory that I think is pretty pretty much a solid giveaway of like the TMNT T-shirt being the thing. We know one of them's a caster. They're likely gonna do Green Mage. Like that just
Fair, yes.
I don't disagree with that. It's probably the easiest logic to follow. So unless they go with something out of the box that people wouldn't think of, that's probably the most likely. Melee, on the other hand, is the one that's much harder to pick out. And I'm going with Turtle class. Definitely Turtle
So
class.
I heard one interesting theory, and it kind of makes sense for that,
What's that?
and that was the Beast Tamer. Beast Tamer was a class in Final Fantasy XI, and you were able to tame things. So they're saying
Turtles?
you're going to be in, well, an Adamantoise, right? Like, so I mean, I've heard people mentioning Adamantoise as being sort of the new race at that point, but
I'm
well,
looking
I,
forward to my turtle class.
so I'll reserve speculation at this point. They have done a fantastic job with everything they have introduced, not only in just coming up with things that are enjoyable to play, but also in balancing them properly so that it's not one of those things where you feel slighted by the new thing that's come out
Yeah.
and it's the only thing people want to play.
Yeah, it's well balanced with the exception of Blue Mage, but it's well balanced.
I mean, Blue Mage, I think, is you either love it or you hate it. I absolutely love it. I wish it were a little bit more ingrained, but at the same time, being off on the side as its own thing, as you know, it's basically a side quest at that point. It's entertaining to go through and try and pick up some of those things.
Yeah, that's fair. And they normally include like a graphical update with the new expansions.
Watch and know this is new, so
Oh,
they haven't
okay.
done a graphical update in a while.
I
So
just assumed it was normal, so
no, so that's what's going to be interesting is they're doing a graphical enhancement as a part of Dawn Trail. So I am curious to see how they're like what things are going to look like, and also the thing I am concerned about is what new PC do I need to buy in order to take advantage of that.
that's fair.
So,
I wonder how big of an update it's going to be in terms of graphics, but I mean, who knows, right?
yeah, we'll find out.
But I mean, I will say their trailers are top
Oh,
notch in terms of fidelity, but that's Square Enix at its core, right? Like it just looks utterly
yes.
amazing. Obviously, that's not representative of what the game is, but the game still looks good. So, what are they going to make it look like with the changes, right? Like
I will give them
obviously
this
there's
though.
space to grow, but
Yeah.
where?
The cinematics they do in game are very on par with the actual graphics themselves. They don't do that thing where they cut it to super graphics, and I appreciate them doing that so that you have a bit more continuity as you move through the story of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you feel more immersed in your story when your character goes from cutscene to gameplay without changing, right? Yeah, that's always jarring when they do it in other games where you are playing this game and then the cutscene is some high res pre rendered thing, and you're like, but my guy was an 8-bit guy over there. Like, why does he look like this? And like it is a jarring. Unless that's the intent of the game, it's very hard to kind of focus that through. So yeah, I do like that about 14, that everything feels like it's part of the world, and it doesn't look bad. Like it looks
No,
great.
not at
Their
all.
spectacle, I mean, Square Enix, their spectacle is still top tier
Yes.
in what you could reasonably expect from an MMO, right? Like this is a game that is meant to be accessible in a certain sense.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be, Final Fantasy 16 style graphics because that's just not
Absolutely.
reasonable
Yeah.
for a game of that scale.
Yes, absolutely. So that was basically it for FanFest. I mean, I had some friends that were there, so I got to see Instagram and Twitter updates that, not gonna
Nice.
lie, I kind of wished I was there. It looked like it was a lot of fun to participate in. Having been at, a large scale convention like that, I can absolutely attest to the fact that they are a lot of fun if you can go to them.
Yeah.
But it all depends on what's accessible to where you're located in the world. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fair. Not all
which
of
is
us can
actually
make
a
it out to them.
great segue into the other thing I wanted to cover here because HupoCon is not an official Square Enix event. It's a fan run event, but it is coming to Toronto. So
Boku?
they have done, yes, yes, they have done, over in the UK, they do events in the States. Toronto and Montreal seem to be the other two big locations, at least in Canada, that they will run events, not every single year, but they will run them. And they're going to be doing it again this year in December, first
Nice.
weekend on the 2nd. I actually booked a ticket
Very
because
cool.
I've been to Fan Expo with the Toronto Extra Life Guild a couple of times, and that was like last year was the first time I'd ever been to like a fan convention sort of thing. I never went to them, and I kind of regret not having gone to them because that was a lot of fun. So when I heard that there was going to be one Final Fantasy exclusive and in Toronto, I thought I'd check it out. And they have a few really cool voice actors confirmed that are going to be there doing various panel discussions and meet and greets. So,
That's
um, you
that's
know,
awesome.
yeah, I mean they're pulling in, Jack from Stranger of Paradise. I don't know if you have played that game.
No, I have
I
not.
enjoyed it. It's basically the origin story of the first Final Fantasy game, and that Jack Garland is the hero, or is he? Because he ends up getting corrupted in uh, the process of things.
Yes, yes, he does.
Um, they're pulling in both Clive and Benedicta from Final Fantasy 16, so
Which is
bringing in
cool.
people that are very new,
Yeah.
and then honestly, the voice actor for Thancred from 14, that sounded super awesome. So yeah,
That guy
I will be
has
there.
that guy has way too much fun playing Thancred. Like, I'm gonna be honest, he just has way too much fun doing that.
The only thing that would have been even better for me, and I would have made sure to try and get a meet and greet, is if they brought in Sid from FF16. I would have
Oh.
been like in line for him.
Oh,
Absolutely.
that smoldering voice he's got going.
Well, it's not just the smoldering voice; it's the quick wit that Sid as a character has. Because man, some of his lines are some of the funniest ones I've encountered.
Oh, he's got some great lines, great reads.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's kind of what the event's going to be. I will obviously be sharing as much as I can about it.
Yeah.
I do plan on going in costume, but we'll save
Uh-oh.
that one for later.
Kupo
Oh yeah,
Koo.
it's going to be fun. No, I won't be going as Pupo, but I'll give you that. But we'll save that one for later.
Okay. We'll be doing
Um,
another Final Fantasy episode in no time, so
I'm sure we will. Yes, as I have control of our content. So
it's true. You do.
So let's dive into our final question because
All
that's
right.
the fun one,
That's the big
and
one.
I'm making it really easy for you this time. You
For
coming
both
back
of
to Final
us.
Fantasy 14?
I will be, yes. I don't know when, because it's an MMO. It is
Yeah.
an investment in time. Not that Final Fantasy 14 makes it like, oh, you have to do this and that, or whatever. But it is an investment to get through content, to level up, to investigate the world, to reach new places. So it's time, and it's something that I haven't really had for a while, but I'm reaching the point where I may start having more of it now. So I'm looking forward to maybe getting back into 14, stretching myself forward a little bit, maybe reaching the point where I could start actually teaming up with you for content, that's more relevant.
I
You know,
mean, I am always happy to team up with you for content.
it's true. It's true.
I know I'm generally coming backwards, but I am more than happy to do that. I mean, half the time I have other jobs that need leveling that are close to where you're at anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, um,
So
I
they're
mean, for
they're fun
myself,
times. Yeah. So the same question goes for you. Are you going to come back and eventually reach this content that you paid for that is now free?
so it's not free yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Will
try and
that
get in.
will be free?
I want to try and see if I can get through it before it's free. How about that?
But you
So I'll say this much.
okay?
I had already been wavering on coming back because I have, charity streaming is something I do, and I had already been thinking about coming back as is. So I'll just say I will be back sooner rather than later, and working on getting my way through Stormblood. Um, hopefully ahead of Stormblood being free. And then, yeah, so I would say probably, you won't see me streaming it anytime soon, but I'll probably be back sooner rather than later. So yes, I will 100% be back.
Very nice. So we're definitely going back.
But yeah,
Oh yeah.
what class am I going in as? I have no idea yet. Probably all of them. How about that?
Everyone.
I mean, I have been leveling every single class in some capacity that I think all of them now are past level 50, so yes.
Yay, yay.
All right.
That'll be fun.
I think that's it for us this
I
week.
think that's that. We can call that another final episode, or sorry, Final Fantasy episode, because it's never final.
It will never be the final.
It will never be the
episode.
Final Fantasy. So that has been the show today. You wanna take us out on where they can find us and you?
I mean, if you're looking for us outside of this podcast, I would encourage you to head over to Twitch and specifically CyberWolfJimmy. You will find myself and or both of us there doing charity streaming for Extra Life, which supports children's hospitals. So why not? And yes, right now I am playing Final Fantasy 16. So if you haven't seen it, want to see it, want to watch me suck at it, that's the place to go and check it out.
It's always fun to watch you fail at playing video games. I mean, that's why we're here in the first place, supporting sick kids and watching you fail at video games. They just go together. So that has been our stream today. So we will see you guys here in the Wolf Den next time when we talk about another one. We have a list of topics and they run the gambit of what we could potentially talk about. So we're all over the map. So if you're interested in seeing what's up next for us, tune in the next time. Hopefully it will be next week. We try to do this weekly. We don't always get there, but hopefully we'll be back next week for another episode. Until then, have a good one.
Yeah.